Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Strong and Capable podcast. I'm your host, Brigette Heller, and I have the fabulous Miss Annie Carter on here with me. You want to say, hey, Annie?
Heyo.
I anticipate this will be a high energy, high vibe conversation. Yep. If you know Annie, she's over there dancing in the screen.
We're partying. We're partying. We're ready.
Yep, because Annie is so fun. If you're not following her, I'm just going to throw this out at the beginning. It's Hey Annie Joy, right? Yep. Hey Annie Joy. So just go follow her. You will not regret that. She's so much fun. She's a life coach and she's on a mission to teach women about self-love. Women and men, or just women? What's your focus?
I mean, typically women. I have had a male client before, but typically I focus on women, but it applies to men. If they want to come hang, they're more than welcome,
Yeah. My celiac passed, because I served on the Celiac Disease Foundation board for years. It was interesting. There were so many more women. It was like 50%, really high, more likely for women to get diagnosed with celiac disease. And it's not because men don't have it. It's because women are more in tune to their bodies and more willing to say, there's something not right here. There's something off and I should go to a doctor, And so they would get diagnosed more than men. Men will just be like, oh, I feel like horrible. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, I'm going to power through.
Yeah. So it's funny because our events were usually predominantly women and maybe their spouses, if they had a lovely supportive other partner. And so I was just thinking about, I primarily work with women, you primarily work with women, and probably a lot of that has to do with that same reason.
Totally. They're more willing to be like, there's a problem here. I'm going to fix that, or I'm going to work on that. I'm going to seek some help there because I want to do something different. Yes, I agree with you for sure.
Yeah. We're not good with the status quo, us women.
No, we're like, no, we got it, which sometimes can be a trap too. Right. And I'm sure we'll talk lots about this today, but we get into this trap of bettering where we want to progress, but progressing is not the same thing as always trying to fill the black hole of I'm not enough. Difference there. And I think that is why women, we do that, but then it's a double-edged sword. We got to be careful that we're not trying to fill the empty hole. We are just loving ourselves enough to keep the progression flowing.
Yes. So I love that you said that. In the podcast that I told Annie before we started, I've now recorded 3 times. And I'm going to record again today and we'll go live today. Obviously, by the time this airs, it will have been a week later. But I talked about that, how, a lot of times there is that void. And when we go to do self-care, self-love, we become self-aware of what's going on. And we're ready to do something about it. A lot of times what happens is people go into this wallowing in the trauma spot. And they think it's transformation. They think they're transforming their lives, and what they're doing instead is wallowing in it. I've seen that a lot where they get trapped in the I've suffered, I've hurt, and it's good. I'm not saying I'm trying to work through these words. It's good to address and acknowledge it. It's important to.
Of course, yeah.
It's almost like re-traumatizing yourself if you stay in it. If you don't allow the journey to pull you through it and out of it.
Right. It is a continual motion. It's not, that's part of the path that you're in it and you're feeling it, but staying there is not progressing. Like you're saying, that is stagnant to stay in the suck, to stay in the hurt, to stay in the yucky beliefs. We have to keep moving through it. Well, we don't have to, right? But if we want to progress, that's part of the progression, is allowing that part to be there and to sit with it until it's ready to move on.
Yep.
And we're ready to move on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that move on can be working with Leanna Hunt. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she does a lot of EFT tapping and trauma timeline therapy.
Okay.
And she talks about, she says, that can be literally working through that, sitting with it can be literally a second if you're ready to move on. It doesn't have to be a long, prolonged moment. Sometimes we really have to process things, but a lot of times just seeing it, standing up to it, acknowledging what it is, and that this is no longer serving you is enough to help you process and move forward.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when we're looking at these beliefs around our lack of self-love, right? When we're looking at those things, sometimes we need to know where it came from and sometimes we don't. But often we just need to see the impact of what's happening. And when the impact gets bad enough, then oftentimes that's when we're ready to like let it go. Like, okay, this has been damaging my life in these ways for so long. I can't do this anymore. I want to do something different. And to not judge ourselves for what we were doing already. But I just had a client this morning. We talked about this. Like, where you were is where you were, and that's what you were ready to do at the time. And if we have new self-awareness now, I do believe that God, universe, whatever you want to call it, preps us for each step of our growing and learning. So we learned these things, and then that's all we knew how to learn at the time. And then we learned this thing, and then it built, right? And then like the things I'm learning, like today in this moment, I've been prepping for my whole life. 10 years from now, I'll be learning even greater things because I learned these things. So there is this, like, we have to see the impact of it to want to let it go and give ourselves so much grace and space for what we did, because that's all we knew. So of course we did it that way. That's okay.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
Yeah, it's true.
No, I got so excited as you were talking because I'm currently working on the Strong and Capable book, Becoming Strong and Capable.
Yes.
I'm so excited. But as you were talking, this phase you're talking about is a huge part of the book. There's 3 sections in the book, and it's the first is that awareness. The second is the transformation point and what you go through to transform. Like you said, you're preparing for this next phase, and I call that the shine your light phase, where you're ready to now help other people or to be your best self, the fullest expression of yourself in different ways. And we go through this process for every piece of ourself and in every stage of life. So it's an ongoing process that we continually do, and recognizing where you are in that phase is really powerful. Like, oh, I'm becoming aware of this. I don't have to do anything but be aware right now. And okay, now it's time to transform this. Like you said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not willing to stay here.
We ain't doing this crap anymore. We're gonna move.
Yep, we're gonna transform. Let's do it. And then once you've gone through that, which can be, you're building new muscles, it can be very intense.
Absolutely, yes.
Then you're free, and it's like you've hit the top of the mountain, and you're like, hello, here I am. And it's exciting.
Yes, totally. And I think it is also true that we are having these moments of confidence or shining our light in different areas, right? Like like maybe one area we feel super confident in, and like we've really kind of worked through those negative beliefs, and we've like tossed all the lies out, and we're doing really great. And then this other area of our life, we're like, oh, maybe in my mothering, I feel really confident. I feel good about what I'm doing. I feel capable to figure it out. Because confidence is also about, and I mean, it's loving yourself, but it's also like being confident that you can figure it out, that you're capable, right? You're strong and you're capable, and you can figure it out, right? That's what it is. But then there might be other areas of your life where, like for me, dating is one that I'm growing in my confidence, right? Like it's not nearly as high as maybe some other areas of my life, but that's all part of the progress. Is that if I'm confident in one area, it doesn't mean that I'm confident. I love myself in every single aspect. Like there's so many areas to be confident in and to build that like strength and capability in, but that's okay. That there's nothing wrong with me, that I am not quite there yet in this area. And I think that's one of the biggest traps we get into as women is beating ourselves up. And it's like, listen, I've tried for bajillions of years now to change through beating myself up. And I say this on the regular to myself and other people, you cannot hate yourself into change. Only love can do that. Beating yourself up is not productive. It doesn't make you change any faster. In fact, it really does slow down your growth, I think.
I agree 100%. And I love that you said, there's different areas of that. I've done a lot of presentations, and we think because we're visual, right? So many of us are visual. I'm very visual. Like I always pictured when I was younger and before I understood progression and all this self-awareness stuff, that my life should look like this upward, nice, like the financial charts of amazement, where it goes from this low point to a
great trajectory.
Trajectory and rocking life. And I honestly thought when I was 21 and had my first kid, that by the time I was almost 40, I was gonna be like doing whatever I wanted, but
like you'd be living that high life. Yes.
Yeah, I would have made it by then because I would be so old.
Right. And now you're like, oh crap, that's old I am.
Yeah. And I like that. And usually when I do these presentations, the next slide is actually more of a bar graph, and there's highs and there's lows, and they represent different areas of your life. And those can even go up and down. Like you can feel confident and have transformed one area of your life, and then you slip and it's in a different place, you know?
Right. Because new things present themselves and different challenges come up because it's going to, those challenges there are then bring you to a whole nother level. You don't just like get confident in one area and then you're done.
Yep.
Like, oh, I've made it. There is no like there to get to. There's always another level. So I like that image of like the trajectory versus the bar graph, because it's just different. And it's so funny you say that about like when I'm 40, I'll have arrived, right? And I'm like, it's just so funny because I'm working through that too. Like I'm 39 years old, I'm divorced, I'm a single parent, and my trajectory is just so off from where I thought I was going to be, right? Like I'm on plan F by now. Like, okay, great. So what are we doing with plan F? And maybe that has to be my book title. Plan F, you know? But it's like, okay, so here we are now. So how can I show space, grace, and compassion for now? Like, where am I at now? And stop judging myself for like what I thought I should be at age 39. What is? Like, I'm 39 years old and I'm figuring out a different career path and I'm figuring out a different life. Why? Because of these things that happen that I didn't anticipate. Because no one goes into marriage thinking, I bet I'm going to get divorced in 7 years. Like I'm planning on it. Like you don't do that, right? So the bar graph got a little thrown off here, and it's like, okay, well then where do I go from here? And how can I love myself in this space? And so it's just so funny you say that, because like that's something that because I continually do my work. I tell my clients all the time, I'm not like over here being like, you guys are gotta learn how to be like me because I've got it all figured out. No, like, yes, I've learned some things, and that's why I love helping and love coaching, because I want to help people get those tools, because those tools have really helped me. But that doesn't mean that like I've figured it all out and I'm perfect. I still have my own beliefs that I continue to work through, and new levels of love and new levels of self-acceptance and self-awareness, right? So it's just funny you say that, because that's in my mind, right? Like, oh, at this age, I thought I'd be this way. And for all you youngsters who might be listening, it doesn't work. Your plan A is probably not going to work out. Like, and that's okay. And I think we need to teach our children that. Like, there's resiliency in, we don't know how it's going to turn out. We can plan for what we hope to have happen, but there's nothing wrong if it doesn't go that way.
Yeah. Nothing wrong at all. And it's the funnest part is when you release yourself from the attachment of how it's going to work out, then you are not as scared to do new things or different things. And that makes life exciting, and it's very empowering. You're like, ooh, how cool am I that I just did that? I didn't think I could do that, and I just did it.
Right.
I didn't even think about it. You know?
Right. Because we're so stuck in like, this plan, like this XYZ plan. And then we get kind of put blinders on when we do that, because we're not seeing all the other possibilities, there are options out there. And what's so cool about your concept around strong and capable is that we don't know how strong and capable we are until it gets tested. Right? I can say all day long, I'm so strong, I'm so capable. That is awesome. But how do I know that I am unless my limits get tested? So I have seen so much strength and so much capability in myself because of the things I have gone through. Those have built my character. They have built who I am. They've helped me to increase my compassion for other people, like, which is something I'm very passionate about. But those things have come, and that strength has come by the things I've had to experience. And so that's why, I know it sounds so cliche, like we're grateful for those things, because I wouldn't be the person I am right now. And I know we were talking earlier about like, okay, so we hear self-love a lot. That's very trendy, right? Like, oh, love yourself, love your selfie, like taking pictures, like we see that concept a lot. But like, what does that actually mean? Like, how does that actually play out? And for me, one tool that I use that helps me a lot, because I have had so many years of self-loathing, so many years of, I would beat myself up for turning the wrong way in the car, like going left and I'm supposed to go right or whatever. I would be like, oh my gosh, you're so dumb. And I would just like spiral into like how stupid I am for like 15 minutes over one mistake. right? And I was like, this is not working. So one shift that I made was to just say, oh, silly me. Like, we're not going into this whole rant about how dumb I am. It's just, oh, silly me, I made a mistake. And I started saying it out loud so that I would like remind my brain. And now my kids, they'll do something like, oh, silly me, and they laugh about it. Like, okay, if I could help one little shift in my kids to not beat themselves up for everything they do, I have given them a little bit better life than I had growing up, right? Because I spent years doing that. So I was like, wow, there's a lot of power in how I speak to myself. And I know that theoretically, like, how does that actually translate? So I started writing like love letters to myself. And I'm like, dear Annie, I get you are so pissed and blah, 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 blah. And this is why. And I totally get that. And I understand, and like just going through all the things, because we all know what we want to hear. Like, we know the exact phrasing we want to hear. So why not tell yourself that? That doesn't mean we don't like need love and support and validation from each other. Because we do. We're all here together on purpose, right? Like, we're supposed to be together. Connection's important. But if we can't get our own back first, then that's where the line is with like seeking this validation from other people. If we can't even like be at peace with ourselves, then we're just always seeking it from other people. We're trying to fill that black hole of like, tell me I'm worthy, tell me I'm worthy, tell me I'm okay. When we can just, I've made it this practice and it's been so helpful for me. And I actually wrote one recently about would have been my 10-year anniversary. And I shared this one on social media. I write them all the time, but I don't necessarily share them. And I got tons of feedback. They're like, wow, that's really powerful. I'm like, yeah, everybody can do this. And it feels silly. Like, I tell people that and they're like, to yourself. I'm like, yeah, dear Annie, fill in the blank, love Annie. Like, but it's so powerful because it's changing the narrative of how I speak to myself. So that's just one way that I put that into practical application instead of just saying, oh yeah, I love myself. That's neat. And like, affirmations are very powerful. This is a way for me to like put it into a little bit more practical, right? Like, I am speaking this whole dialogue and changing my dialogue with myself.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because putting just a tiny bit of space between your brain and how you view yourself, that's what you're doing with that letter. You're just giving a little space here between all the noise and what you want, allows that. I was speaking in front of a whole bunch of women on Tuesday and doing this presentation. And one of the things I've really run across with self-love, especially in the Christian world, is we view it as, like you said, like prideful or negative or like not okay, or it's really weird. And so I do the 10-day I am challenge, of course, and I have videos of women saying, I am powerful and kind and creative, and they're all these different women, different backgrounds, and they're all saying just one statement. And I played it, and it was so cute to watch the women in the audience like just smile. They were like so happy. I asked them, I said, what do you think of these women? And they raised their hand. They're powerful. They're courageous. They had all this beautiful praise for these women for saying one statement. That's all. It was just one statement.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, then why, when you say these things about yourself, do you say, I'm prideful, I'm arrogant, I'm horrible? We can see it for other people that claiming your beautiful, unique self is so powerful, but we really struggle to see it for ourselves.
Yeah.
You know?
And we have these beliefs about like that confidence is cockiness. And it's like, no, to me, confidence means God gave me incredible power and incredible gifts. And by using them, I am benefiting the world. And he gave me those on purpose. I don't serve anybody sitting in a corner thinking I'm stupid. It just doesn't help anybody. It doesn't better the world around me in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. It doesn't. And when you step into who you are and just own it, it frees all this space in your heart, in your mind, in your life. I don't think we realize how many hours we'll sit on a couch folding laundry or whatever with our brain just spinning in the, man, I wish I could do this. I should have done that. How many conversations are you replaying? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I accidentally looked at her that way or accidentally said that thing. And oh my gosh,
that was so stupid. Why did I say that? And yes.
Next time, I spent years doing that. Next time I had the best comebacks later. I will be funny and cute. I don't remember it the next time, but I do beat up myself the next time when I was in that negative space, you know?
Totally. Yes. Yep. It's true. And the thing is that I tell clients too, like, it will come back. Like, I don't think the autumn all of a sudden, like, you don't have those little demons in your head anymore. It's just you are so much better at karate chopping in the face,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm sure now you'll have those things come up and you're like, whoop, I know this game and I
Yep.
don't play this game anymore. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
then some of them might come that will challenge you a little bit more and it might take you a little longer to process through it, like you were saying, but you still have the tools and the mindset to like figure out how to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how self-love transforms your life, is instead of being I played the piano. I've played the piano my whole life. And when I was in the dark space, I would stress about it. I would practice a million times. I'd get up on the stage or in front of the congregation or whatever, and my hands would just be like leaves. I'd be shaking like a leaf. Like my foot, I couldn't even press the sustain pedal because my foot was shaking so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, my heart's racing, and I'd be sweating and stinky. It was like literally the worst experience of my life every time I had to play. And sometimes that was every Sunday at church, right? Well, I've been doing self work for a long time and I've learned to accept myself and just to let go of the outcome, as we said earlier. And
Yeah.
last Christmas, I was playing for the choir at church, totally screwed it up. I mean, I just lost where I was completely. I was like, I don't even know where we are because I was just so in the moment, right? I just totally lost it. And instead of shutting down or shaking like I normally would, I literally giggled and then kept going.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I afterwards wasn't mad at myself. I wasn't, ruminating on it forever. I wasn't trying to hide away from everybody. It wasn't a big deal. I didn't think anything of it. And I can't tell you how many people came up to me and said, I loved that you laughed. I loved that
Yeah.
you laughed, you know?
Yeah. And I
So
think it's because you gave them permission
yes. Yep.
to just be
That's,
okay with making mistakes.
yep. When we allow ourselves grace for ourselves, forgiveness, when we let go of these things, we don't realize how it really does impact, like you said, your children, it'll impact your coworkers, your family, because now they're allowed to be okay too.
Right. Like we create space for just to show up as we are with all of it. Right. And again, we hear that a lot too. Like, be authentic. And then people kind of misinterpret that to be like, I'm going to say whatever garbage thought is in my head and dump it on you. And I'm being authentic. And it's like, no, being authentic means like showing up for like what you are, not your opinions of other people, not your judgments, not what it like, right? Like we're showing up as like who our true selves are. And in your true self moment, you made a mistake. And instead of making it mean that you were this terrible person and you're a terrible piano player and why'd I come up here and everyone's gonna think I'm stupid, like that whole spiral that you could have gone down, instead of going down that spiral, you're like, oh, and moved on.
Yep.
Right? You made a choice. And that's what, again, that power in that response is like, okay, I have a choice here. I can go down that spiral. I know that game all too well. Like I have a PhD in ruminating, I'm pretty sure, like I'm really good at it. But do I want to go down that road this time? I might tomorrow, whatever. But today, and in this moment, I have this choice. Do I want to go down that path or do I want to just giggle and move on? I love that story.
Yeah, I was thinking self-love, according to social media, would be, when do people, not you and me, because we're hashtagging self-love a lot about all sorts of different views of it. Like the typical person, typical whoever that hashtag self-love, it's when they're doing something they view as the world would think it's cool, like getting the nails done, going on the girls trip, having the fancy dinner, whatever
mimosas
it is.
at brunch.
Yeah, self-love.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, and you kind of brought it up earlier, strong and capable. In my mind, true self-love is when you got the mom bun going on and the kid just screamed at you and all the things, and you can take a deep breath and let it go or process it and use it to learn from and to grow from. I think true self-love, when you've really accomplished a sense of that, is when you're able to take all that and still love yourself and not have to beat yourself up or go down the spiral like you were talking about.
No, for sure. Yes, I agree. It's in those ugly moments making a choice. You're so right. That's what self-love is. It's making a choice in every moment, whether it's the pretty ones or the ugly ones. We make a choice to be kind to ourselves in that situation. We do not need to beat ourselves up. It's not necessary. And it's really not even like the language of God. And if you're someone who believes in God and that's a path you're going down, like that's not the language he speaks in. I don't even think the universe speaks in that language of like discouragement and doubt and disparity. That's not their language. And so when that comes up, like we can know that's not from God, that's not from universe, that's not from spirit, that's not in alignment with light. Even if you like want to look at things just light and darkness, when that darkness comes in, the best way to repel it is through light, which means we get a chance to make that choice, right? To say which way am I going to go? And I love that. You're totally right.
Yeah. So how do we get there? Right? Like you said, there's some things we can do. We can write a letter to ourselves. We can start saying, "Oh, silly me," or that's one of the things I did too when I was first learning self-love, was just learning to speak kind to yourself. That was my first coach. She's like, how do you talk to someone you just adore? "Oh, hey baby, hey sweetie, honey." Just that's how you talk to yourself.
Right.
I started talking to myself that, "Oh, hey girl, you're so sweet." And I laugh, but it sticks,
Right. But the point is it's still, because whatever thought we have generates this energy and emotion and creates an emotion, right? So if I have the thought like, "Oh, you're such a babe," like I smile and it generates something different than like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so fat," and whatever, like it generates a totally different energy, right? And that was one thing too. I started winking at myself in the mirror because I like don't haven't loved looking at myself in the mirror, right? And I'm like, well, I can just wink at myself. So anytime I catch my reflection, I'm like, "Yeah, babe, such a babe," right? Like just those little shifts, and just start looking at where the beliefs are that are holding you back. Write them all down. I love writing. I think writing is very powerful. There's science behind it. Like, do a mind dump. What are all the things that you're saying about yourself? And are those things helping you or hurting you? Do you like them? Because the good and the bad news is it's on us, right? Like bad news, you can't blame anybody else. Good news, you have the power to do something about it. So write it all down. Do you like it? Does it serve you? Does it make you feel good? Make you feel happy? If no, why not? Let's look at that, right? And that's why having a coach can be so powerful, is because sometimes we get kind of stuck in it, right? And we can see with a third party perspective, just can see things differently than we can, because we're all just so emotionally attached to our problems and to our beliefs that we have a hard time seeing it, And so just having a safe space to kind of process through it. Oh, okay, so this belief, I can see why I've had it. I can understand why I've kept it for so long, and it served me in some way, but I'm going to lovingly let it go. I'm not judging myself for having it. I'm just saying, "Oh, that doesn't work anymore." And just make those little shifts. I don't think we wake up one day and all of a sudden we're like, "Oh, go from hating ourselves to magical self-love," right? But just keep switching those phrases. I heard, I think it was on the Allison show. I think that's where I heard this thought. But she talked about how when she shows up to something, she says, "Oh, they're so lucky I'm coming." And at first it was like, "Ooh," like I was like, "Oh boy." And I'm like, "Oh, I know that twinge. I got to look at it. Why do I not like that?" It's like, "Oh, because I was again associating being confident with being a cocky, prideful mess," right? But that's not what it is. It's when I show up saying, "They're so lucky I'm here because I have so much to give them." That's me showing up in my best self. Now I do that when I go to singles events, when I go to wherever, like I'm like, "Oh, they're so lucky I'm coming." And it makes me smile and it makes me happy and it makes me want to give my best self and give my best talents to whoever I'm going to be around. So maybe that thought doesn't work for you, but find the things that will make those shifts, because each one of those little shifts just builds up your overall sense of how you feel about yourself.
Yes, and I was thinking as you were talking, the cool part about this process is once you love yourself, or when you accept, let's just even go with self-acceptance at this point.
Totally. Yeah.
Once you accept who you are and are at peace with this, what's cool about it is you do start to follow the whispers, the promptings, the universe whispers, the things. You follow them differently than you would because when you always get these whispers, right? These things, these dreams, these feelings, they're like, oh, I could, maybe I should. But when you loathe yourself, you doubt them. You're like, oh no, I could never. Who am I to think that? Why would I? Right. And when you have this inner peace, you're like, ooh, that could be interesting. That could be fun. That could be. And I love that story you shared about the Allison show, because I actually had a similar experience. I was coordinating with a local vendor, and we're coordinating we wanted to do like a really upscale retreat. It was going to be these huge, she has a lot of connections with really big influencers. And she said, and Brigette, you'll give the motivational thought. And I was like, this was like 2 years ago. Like, I have like one podcast episode, and who am I, right? These women have like 600,000 followers, not joking, 1 million followers. And I'm like, hey, Brigette here. And she said, you felt led to come to me. We felt led to create this. And it feels right that you give this thought. So obviously you have something to offer here. There's something they need from you. And I loved it because I needed it at the time. I was, again, we all have ups and downs in this journey. I was not in my best confident place. And I needed to hear that, and that's the same for every person listening right now, every human on earth. We all have unique gifts. We have special things that we can share, and we all have our own stories that make us view life in our own way, which means every situation you have something to add that no one else can. No one else can.
Right. Or in a way that only that group of people that you're with, you can influence in that way. Right. And in fact, I've thought a lot about this too, because I continually meet awesome women like you who are doing like a similar type of work. And there's a choice. There's a choice to say, oh, these people are already doing it. I don't need to do that because they're already doing it. And that could be applied to any realm, right? Like, I don't need to sell on Etsy because there's a billion things on Etsy. Or whatever your dream is, you can always find people who are already doing it. But especially when it comes to putting good things out in the world, we have so much influence telling us otherwise. There is an entire dark force telling us that we are not good enough, that we need these products to be better. Like there's an overwhelming culture of not enough. So to me, if there are more women who want to stand up and say, I'm standing for light, I'm standing for power and for love and for being connected, then we're all on the same team here. Like, I don't think, like, think about this. So there's not room for you to like help people feel better about themselves. Like, that's nonsense, right? And essentially, she's like, of course you have things to share, because why would we don't? There's not like, sorry, we have too many people talking about self-love. We just can't have any more. No, like we need to band together. In fact, from the show Cultivate a Good Life, when I first met her, she told me, if you're standing for light and you're against Satan and you want to help people for good, you're on my team. I see no competition, because we are fighting we are banding together as an army of women. And I think that applies whether you're trying to be having a platform or not. Whatever it is you're doing, if you want to stand up and be of light and be of benefit to other women, we are all on the same team. We are fighting together. And I loved her perspective, and it was really powerful for me. And I've adopted that mentality. So when I see these people, I'm like, oh, well, they're already doing it. What do I got to say or do? It's like, no, there are so many humans in this world. We need all of us to follow through on like those whisperings you're talking about. Whatever your heart is telling you to do, that means someone needs you. They need the way you talk about it. They need your voice. They need your perspective and your story. Because I guarantee there are people who are like, yeah, Annie girl, she is just one weird cup of tea. Like I can't. And that is okay, right? Because for other people, the way I approach things, the way I present it works for them. So even if it's a couple of people, those people are impacted by the way I do it. And these people be impacted by the way you do it. And so of all the bajillions of people on this earth, always going to be room for more light, for more goodness. I don't ever see a time when it's like, sorry, we have too much good. So can you just keep your gifts in your pocket because there's too much good happening? Like, no. So just get up and do your work.
Yeah. Whatever that is. Whatever
that is.
Yeah. I really think in this world, we kind of have gotten to this weird place where it's like, if you don't have 500,000 followers, or if you don't have this, are you really doing anything? If you haven't made millions of dollars and started a foundation, are you really doing anything? And I hate that mentality, because I have seen some of my biggest heroes are the people, like my husband, honestly, is one of my heroes. He goes to work every day. This week, he has worked 15 hours a day. And his whole goal is to, like, he gets on the phone and he makes people feel good. And he's a manager, so that's a huge part of his job. But he's a director. I apologize if he listens. He needs to.
Okay. We gotta get the titles correct here. Yeah.
But point is, like, it's part of his job, right? Because he's managing people. But he goes in understanding that he has a particular skill set that will help people do their job best, because he sees them as humans and he acknowledges them and he lifts them. And I love it when he comes home and tells me his goofy stories about talking about the Traeger with the guys at work, or this, because we can impact wherever we are, and our unique self is how we do it.
Yes, 100%. It's so true. So because here's the thing is that I really think our whole purpose on this earth is to love each other and to love ourselves, like just to be loving. So like you said, who the freak cares if you have a bajillion followers on Instagram?
Yeah.
What does that even matter if you don't have intimate relationships in your life that fulfill you and like make you feel loved and seen and heard? Then what does it matter? So if you are a person that is a great listener and is super patient and makes people feel like they're always wrapped in a hug when you talk to them, sister, that is a freaking good gift. Yeah. And other people have to work really hard to do that. So we got to get out of this mentality to like of comparing the gifts.
Yep.
And I had the thought come to my mind one time. I was reading and I was studying, and I had this thought of like, well, do my feet get mad that my face gets more like FaceTime? No, they don't. Like, my feet know that they are important, and they're not getting pissed off that like my arms are up here and that they get more hug time than they do, or whatever. Like, all of us matter and all of our roles matter. And if we can get out of that comparison game, it doesn't, we've heard that before too, but it doesn't do us any good. And it just divides us. And I think there's just so much more power when we're connected.
I agree. So takeaways today: get connected, right?
Yeah.
Give yourself forgiveness and grace. Get out of your head and find ways to love yourself, whether it's through affirmations or writing a love note, as you said, or talking sweet to yourself in the mirror, winking yourself, right? Like, do goofy things. And like you said, the best part about those is they make you laugh, and it's just gives that energy of joy and happiness. What else did we say? I feel like, don't think your life is going to go beautifully straight up. Understand that there's levels of growth, and sometimes what was a high bar on our bar graph starts all over, and it's okay.
Right. And then we get to love ourselves through every version of the plan, and every hiccup in the plan. We get it's another opportunity to love ourselves and show ourselves grace each step of the way.
Yep. Yeah. And remove ourselves from the outcome. Like you said, allow there to be plan A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yep. Here we are in plan F, guys. I don't know. Here we are. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool over here.
You know what's the best thing? I feel like usually plan F is better than plan A in some weird way. Yeah.
Right? Well, I mean, the girl that I am right now, I love every phase of me. Right? Because I love the girl who didn't know her worth and who compromised herself and, was inappropriate with her boyfriend because she just wanted her love. And I love her too. I love every piece of this journey, right? Because every piece of me was learning and doing the best that she could. But yes, do I love where I am right now because of the things I've learned? Yes. And then 10 years from now, when I look back and I'm like, oh, cute 39-year-old Annie, she thought she knew what she was doing, and we're going to love her here. And then I'll know and I'll grow and I'll learn. But I am grateful for where Plan F has led me, because I don't know if I would be as strong and as capable as I am if I hadn't failed. And it's not failure, right? But like, if those plans hadn't worked out, if they had worked out, I don't know if I'd be where I am. And I don't know if I would know what I know. And I don't know if I would love people as hard as I do. And So I am. I'm grateful for Plan F because it's brought me the peace and the joy that I didn't know I could experience. And if that all had to come for me to understand what true joy looks like, then I would do it again.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, Annie, how can people find you? How can they connect with you?
So, like we said, Instagram is at Hey Annie Joy. My website is anniejoy.com. I do have a little freebie that's a Mad Lib love note. So it is like fill in the blank. There's 3 of them. So if you sign up for the email, it'll come to you 3 of them. But it just has these little fill in the blank, like dear so and so, and I love you because fill in the blank, and it just kind of walks you through. It's just a fun, silly way to kind of walk you through that awkward phase of learning how to talk differently to yourself. Because I have gone from such a hard, ugly place to, again, I'm not perfect, but I've learned so much more about how to be kind to myself. And that was one of the huge shifts for me, was to learn how to talk differently. And I want that for you.
Yep. We want that for anyone listening. And if you have thoughts or feedback or want to get in touch with us, reach out to both of us. We would love to talk more with you about how to love yourself. That's always a thing in this month of love. Thank you, Annie, so much for coming on and talking with us today.
Thank you. You're amazing. I appreciate you.
You too.